Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Jewel and Jason talking about the business of freight. And we've got kind of a double surprise for you. So be sure to watch the video all the way through. We're actually going to break this out into two parts so that way you'll get a little bit of information, education. And then we've got some fun details for you for a trip that Jason took. So, Jason, welcome back. Thank you
Eh,
again for sharing your time and expertise with my audience. So, talk to us about some of the things that drivers need to do when they get that load information and they have to find your spot and then pick up freight, things like parking and just the administrative aspects that go behind picking up and delivering. Tell us a little bit about that. I know you had some questions and so forth that
Yeah.
some people had asked you.
So usually, when an owner operator gets a broker load and he's going to a location, they need to know if it's going to be some overnight parking. If it's a drop in the hook, uh, is the trailer that they're dropping clean inside? Usually with an owner operator, you're bringing in your own trailer, so it's got to be clean. You don't want to actually clean it once you get on site to a location because that's kind of you usually don't have the disposal of incoming debris from a
Mm-hmm.
previous pickup. So you
Exactly.
want to make sure that your trailer is clean and ready to be loaded when you actually get on site,
Mm-hmm.
because you feel like you hassling the customer once you get there. You don't want to be too needy. Another thing you want to know once you get loaded or unloaded, you want to know if we have available parking on site or at a drop yard. So these are things that you need to know. You don't want to be in certain parts of Atlanta, Orlando, Miami, Chicago, and you've got some precious cargo, and they're cutting locks and gunpoint. You don't want to just park anywhere, run out of hours, and you feel like, hey, this is a good place to park. You don't want to do that because you don't want to have that you don't want to exercise your insurance uh, possibility of losing that freight because that counts against you. But I know I'm all over the place because I'm passionate about it. Me and Jewel are very passionate about this transportation space. So that being
Absolutely.
said, but these are some important things you need to know going into a situation because every situation is not the same.
Mm-hmm.
You might go into a place where people are just so happy to see you. You might be going to a place where people are just happy to get you out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to always go in with open mind, knowing that, hey, I just got loaded, but I ran out of hours. Can I park on your premises or do you have available parking for me and without a cost, because
Mm-hmm.
and it's this you need to know these kind of things. And like I said, if you're dropping hook, you want to make sure, like I said, you want to slide those tandems to for that trailer can be loaded and not have a truck that you can't slide the tandems. A lot of times when you show up to a company, they want you to slide the tandems to the rear, and you don't want to keep the tandems where they are, so you can just get loaded and just take off. You want to be able to slide those tandems to the rear, so you don't have a whole bunch of jerking and jumping once you're being loaded at the dock. And there's little things like that that you
Mm-hmm.
need to be aware of. We've seen certain people at certain locations that I worked at, and the tandems are welded, and you can't even slide them. So that's never a good thing. So
Mm-hmm. So doubling back a little bit, first off, for those who may be new to the language of transportation, like drop and hook and so forth, what actually goes into that process? Do you have them drop the trailer like in a door? Do you have them drop it in a yard and then they come and bring something, pick up something else? What usually happens at your spot for dropping and hooking?
well, the spot that I'm currently working at in a spot that I used to be working with in off Moreland Avenue. Uh, those were the one on Moreland was a more secured situation because you actually had to we had to let you inside the premises. You had to
Mm-hmm.
do a sign
Mm-hmm.
in,
Mm-hmm.
drop, you know.
Yeah.
So, but where I'm at now, we will put them actually at a door, and we will lock them to the dock, unlock their airlines, and lock the airline uh, out with a lock so that they actually wouldn't be able to move the trailer actually while it's being loaded.
Yeah.
So for security reasons, for safety as well. But
Absolutely.
you
Absolutely.
that's what you do. You would put them in. You give them a location. They would slide the tandems back into that location, unlock the airline. We secure the trailer to the dock, and then we would actually put the freight on the trailer. So
Okay. So I want to add to that too. A lot of times when I used to drive and I would slide my tandems, a lot of times I might take off and forget to put them back in position. And I just want to add that, as a driver, we want to make sure we put our tandems back in position so that we're not too long or the weight is distributed as it's supposed to be. Cause like, in Georgia, you can get a overweight ticket based on per tandem. So you're only allowed so much weight on the axles. So if you got your tandems pulled to the back, chances are that weight distribution is moved to the drive tires than the steer tires. And so you're going to have more weight sitting on those, and your tandems are going to be all the way to the back. So you might go across the scale and then you might get a weight ticket because you got too much weight sitting on them drive tires. And all you had to do was just move your tandems back into position. And I definitely want to recommend that you weigh your freight. Now, a lot of places don't have a CAT scale readily available to where you once you get out of that spot, the CAT scale is like within 5 miles. So and Georgia unfortunately is famous for not having CAT scales near the shippers. I think at your location there is a CAT scale up at a Quick Trip up the road, probably within 10 miles, I think it is. So if they had an issue, they could probably work that out. But everybody should be scaling. And what that means is once you get loaded, take your tractor trailer up to the CAT scales, have it weighed so that you can get a weight ticket to know that your weight distribution is where it's supposed to be on your steers, your drives, and your tandems. And this way, when you're going across the scales through any of the states, you're good to go. So that's just something I wanted to put that in there. And you also mentioned things about protecting your cargo. That's another piece, especially when you're trying to find a parking spot. So everybody should be having locks on the back of those trailers, so that looters don't come in while you're sleeping, sitting at a rest area and, opening up the back of your trailer. Or you don't want to run the risk of somebody basically hitchhiking. Sometimes, they can jump in the back of those trailers, especially if you haven't gotten a fully loaded trailer and you got space. Somebody might jump in the back of that bad boy and take a ride with you. So these are the things you want to make sure, you are protected. You're protected. And one of the things that we always talk to our students about was trip planning. So when you get that piece of paper, make sure you've got your trip planned out. Make sure you know exactly where you're going, how long it's going to take you to get there, and look at the documentation. Do you guys have like sensitive deadlines that have to be delivered within, say, 2 to 3 days, or is it pretty much when you get there?
no, yeah, you have a pickup the delivery date for both locations that I work at. One is more actually like uh precious goods, meaning TVs, a lot of the high end stuff. So that definitely has a delivery date. But a lot of the stuff that we're moving from, because a lot of times you get to your delivery spot and it'd
Mm-hmm.
be rejected, or it's just first come first serve. So
Absolutely.
you might
Yeah.
got 10 drivers in front of you, and all you guys got assignment, well, scheduled times.
Mm-hmm.
A lot
Mm-hmm.
of times we have a schedule appointment times.
Mm-hmm.
So if you fall out of that hour tolerance time,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be kind of pushed to the back. And
Okay.
drive, that's one of the biggest things. You come to one place and they got 20 doors. You
Mm-hmm.
go to another place and they got 100 doors. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and it
Mm-hmm.
just depends on if they're gonna get to your door. So
Exactly.
it's a
Yeah.
lot of time. We do the southeast eastern region. So basically, you're going from anywhere from, I say, from the Carolinas down to no lower than the Florida Keys.
Mm-hmm.
You're going from Texas, and if you're going all the way to California, you've got a 4 day. I think that's the 4 to 5 day run. So,
Yeah.
but to answer your question, it's usually we got 1 day runs, we got 2 day runs.
Okay.
So
Okay. So, and that's important when they pick up that paperwork, they clarify those things. These are type of questions as a driver, I always had to clarify, make sure that number one, I had the hours to make that delivery on time. And
right,
if I didn't, I had to make the adjustments, either take that rest early so that I could um, get there on time or, figure that out. So another thing being that when you do get to your shipper, and let's say it takes a while before they load it, okay, so take yourself off the clock. Don't sit there, find out how long it's going to take. If it's going to be like a quick, 5, 10, 15 minutes, that's understandable. But there are times when, let's say your production line went down and you had to, postpone loading for a little bit. So
yeah.
because, you got to get the production line back up, get everything made, packed, ready. And so that driver might be sitting there for an extended amount of time. I know I've had situations like that happen to me at some shippers. In that situation, it's important to make sure that you um, understand that you can take yourself out the clock. And that way you preserve your time. And when you get done, then put yourself back on the clock. And then you don't have any violations. So these are all
You,
things. Go ahead.
this is nice that you even went in that space. So the the two places I worked at, and actually I'm gonna say three.
Mm-hmm.
Three places I worked at dealing with transportation, they're very stingy on detention. They do
Mm,
not like paying attention. They don't like paying them brokers detention, and
mm-hmm.
they would cancel the load and repost it on the load board before they even want to pay you detention. You'd be like, "Oh, I'm not paying this driver no 5 hours detention. I'm not paying no 8 hours detention. It ain't that serious."
Wow.
Oh, and resubmit,
Mm,
and rebroker
yeah.
it. Everywhere I work at, they'll give you that 2 hour window.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
one place I work at is actually a 3 hour window before they actually start paying you for detention.
mm.
And then
So
they'll see what the situation is, and
mhm.
they'll call you. They'll make the call before you even know what's going on.
So
And then
that's something that's really important because for a driver who basically is doesn't get paid unless the wheels are rolling.
right, right,
So I mean, I know the most I've ever seen detention pay though is what, 25, maybe $50 tops.
yes. And
So
when you have a good broker or you have a good dispatcher,
mhm.
that driver he'll get on the phone and call his dispatcher and be like, "Hey man, I'm still stuck over here. They ain't even the trail
Yeah.
ain't moving. What's
Yeah.
going on?" And you make a call. I'm here. I've been here. And
Yeah.
then, hey, then we'll get a call from the dispatcher and say, "Hey, my driver's been there on site 45 minutes. There's going to be a delay in what we got going on. It's going to
Mhm.
be us trying to get to our delivery date
Yeah. Yeah.
because he got to take a 10-hour break." So, like I said, when that happens, that's where the communication stuff kicks in.
Yes.
You gotta be able to communicate. You can't be trying to watch the NBA finals and you ain't even worried about if you're getting loaded or not because you don't ran out of hours. You're gonna sleep there because it's one of them situations. A lot of drivers they run out of hours. They say, "Well, I'm good," and then you wake up, you still ain't loaded, and then
Mhm.
attention for that. No, you got to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got to. And it's It's, we're in a trustworthy business here. You have to be trustworthy. So
That, yeah,
that
that
yeah,
is true.
right. That being said, you have to let them know, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. And the big businesses, the 500 Fortune companies, they don't have a problem with calling the broker and say, hey, we need to cancel this load and reschedule tomorrow.
Mm,
And they don't care about they cutthroat. They don't care about no driver
mm,
because you're just a number and they're making so much money. But the business is there, so and the product is already sold. The
mm-hmm.
merchandise is already built.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
already shipped. So a lot of times you can't get in your feelings when you're dealing with when you're dealing with this kind of space we're in. So
Well,
people,
and profit margin is essential. Every company out there is trying to squeeze as much profit as they can. So, retail has the lowest profit margin. And then, I think construction has a much better profit margin, but everybody has to watch that bottom line, that net, because when they write that ticket, whoever sold, and bought the product, everything that touches that has a price to it gets added to the bottom line for the final sale.
right,
So if you're paying $50 every time somebody has to sit at the dock too long, that $50 has to be added into the cost. And
right,
if they already established, well, our profit margin, let's say, is $1,000, and now they got to take $50 out of that. Okay. But then, it doesn't seem like a lot to us. But when you start breaking it down, and every time a driver turns around, you got another $50 here, another $50 here, another $50 here. Sooner or later, the profit of that product movement has eroded. And then that doesn't include the cost of fuel. Fuel right now is one of the main costs of logistics and transportation, and it is the one that is least controllable, because that fluctuation happens based on the commodity of fuel. So if OPEC is putting a sanction on the United States, fuel prices are going up because we don't have as much supply. So all these little pieces, I think it's important to drivers. They don't see it. And I know a lot of them, I've heard a lot of complaints about it's, they don't want to share the money with us. And that's a yes and no. A lot of times we're trying to make sure that the end user, which is us, the consumer, can afford the product. In marketing, we have the 4 Ps. We have the product, the price, the promotion, and the placement. So, product and price are the first two.
right,
Placement, okay, that falls under distribution. So when we're thinking about where we're going to place this, we also have to consider the price of that placement. And then the promotion of it is also a cost. So, it's just a part of the nature of the beast. And all these bits and pieces are part of the big picture that right now, until we find another fuel source, which they're working on electric vehicles and all that, until that fuel source becomes cheaper, you're going to see these types of things. You're going to see companies X out a load and rebook it just to say that $50 or $25, whatever they're looking for. So for drivers, if you're a company driver, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get your money. Okay. But if you are an owner operator, that's the ones that are going to have to be more aware, mindful of the cost involved in all of this,
right,
because they're paying their insurance, their fuel, buying their food, all of that is coming out of their net. So, my advice, if you're owner operator watching this, and this is something that you've come across, my advice to you is start tracking your expenses. I mean, methodically. Every time you pull up and you got to pay something, write it down, because that's the only way you're going to figure out how to stop that cost from basically eroding a rate on your profits. That's the only way you're going to find out. And that's what big business is doing. I know your company does it. I mean, that's why they've survived so long, because
Oh yeah.
they pay attention to the bottom line, and they know every piece of freight that runs out that door has a profit to it, and everybody's
Oh,
dependent on that profit coming through, especially if it's a public
everybody.
trade. Yeah, especially for stock market prices and all that kind of stuff. You got stakeholders that are looking for companies to make sure they're paying attention to the bottom line. So, owner operators, you're a business owner. Most of you, I'm sure, are probably doing this. However, I'm sure there's a few of you that are just flying by the seat of your pants, and you got the truck and you got the bill laden and you're off and running. And then all of a sudden you walked away with, say, $250, $300, plus or minus, once you take out all your expenses. Don't just take out the ones that make it look good. Take out all
Right.
the expenses. Okay. So,
Right.
um, but yeah, what else you want to add to what drivers should be mindful of when they come up and they're worried about someplace to sleep or that kind of thing?
Well, I wonder. I'm gonna answer that question, but I want to tell you about a little something I saw last night.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
I've been watching CNN news and Fox News.
Uh-huh.
Oh, they were saying that there was going to be a shortage of drivers in the next 10 years. It's
Okay.
going to be a shortage of drivers.
Okay.
Uh, they said that they had to hire between 1.2 million drivers in the
Okay.
next years, or there will be a shortage of drivers. And
Okay.
that's what on up. And I can get fact check now. And I actually saw this last night. I was like,
And this is on
wow.
CNN?
CNN News
Okay.
and Fox News as well.
Okay.
Oh, and one of the news anchor guys was actually was taking a CDL driving test in a Warner trailer.
Ah,
Yes.
okay.
And he was actually trying to see how hard it is to get a CDL.
Okay.
And he was actually an automatic truck with a
Yeah.
Warner truck. And he was actually trying to back it in and go through the cones and all that good stuff. So it was very interesting that this was on a major broadcast about the shortage of drivers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know,
they've been talking about this for a while, because the trucking industry has aged out a lot. Um, the FMCSA opened up to where they were allowing 18 and above to get a CDL now. The only restriction is they can't leave their state until they turn 21.
whoa,
So they can I have actually trained probably about 4 or 5 18 to 19-year-olds in the last year to drive a truck. Okay. And they learn how to drive a 10 speed. They didn't learn how to, because the automatic is fine. It's nothing wrong with you learning how to drive an automatic. But you have a restriction on your license, which means if you go to a company and they don't have enough automatic trucks for you, you will probably work on the dock or you won't drive that day. Okay. So, but most trucks like your Warners or your Schneiders and your long haul guys, a lot of them have migrated over to the automatic truck. So there's a good probability that someone will get a job right out of school. However, when you become like the XPOs of the world and some of the local guys, Southwest, Eastern,
Southeast.
Southwest, yeah, Southeastern, um,
Yeah,
what is another one? Old Dominion.
right. And they
They,
real old.
yeah, they shy away from drivers with restrictions because they haven't migrated their entire fleet to automatic trucks. They still have a lot of inventory of trucks that are the manuals and require you to know how to drive a stick shift, a 10 speed. And so my thing with this shortage that's happening, I think the shortage is two issues. One, truckers are leaving because they can't make any money.
Right.
And so they have the license, but instead of them staying in the industry, they say, you know what, I'm going and I'm just going to work warehouse. I'll make more money doing that. Or I'm gonna go over here and, work at pizza place. They just
Right.
get tired and they can't make the money.
Right.
So they leave. And the company driver, most of these big companies, what I have seen from feedback, this is from feedback from students that I have had go out and work in the world. They can't make enough money. So as a new driver, their checks a week are 200, maybe 400 take home, and 400 a week that's just not a lot of money in today's economy.
Yeah.
So even though you want these new drivers and you're training these new drivers, you're not paying these new drivers. And so that takes us back to the profit process.
Right.
A new driver, you can put them in the truck and you don't have to pay them a lot.
Right.
And when you do that, you save some money, but at the same time, you wind up doing a lot of turnover. Your turnover rates are high. Drivers get frustrated and so forth, so on. So they wind up leaving. So it is definitely a human resource versus human need and profitability. I mean, there has to, at some point, these organizations, these big, top dogs need to come up with a solution that it's a win-win, because
Right.
owner operators are struggling. I mean, they're really struggling right now to stay afloat. And I think the lone wolf owner operator is going to need to team up with companies. They're going to need to sign on and contract themselves with companies, so that way they can, do what they need to do. So,
It's amazing and that you would mention that, and as well as that, I, I don't know all of your situation, but I'm in your situation, and I commend you, I always think about the risk factor and the risk that you took in your
in my
faith,
journey.
your journey, everything. I mean, it's your body of work. I met you. I was impressed by how professional you were for representing a company that you work for. And I got the great news that you're going to be a broker and you're getting your master's, and you fit the description. This is not a facade. It's not. If anybody thinks that you're not who you say you are, shame on them. But you have a
Appreciate
fan.
that. I appreciate that. Thank
It
you.
all say this to that. I've known what you've done to actually start your broker company. I know the struggles of it. You have all the nuts and bolts, the whole gumbo pot. You know the end. You know the struggle for trying to get new business, trying to get customers, trying to get drivers, trying to get the surety bond. You know everything about it. You know these drivers are not here. They jumping from broker to broker. They jump from dispatch. Nobody. This is not a lower game. Nobody to nobody.
No. Yep.
And it's almost like I don't want to say the drug game. It's like being in the drug business. Nobody's loyal.
Yeah.
But we love it. You
We
fell in
do.
love.
We do.
You're passionate about it, and me as well. I mean, it's kind of like you pick people brain. You be like, let me see what this guy gonna say versus this guy. Let me see what this lady gonna say versus this lady. And some people have fell in love with it, whether they just model citizens or felons. You know what I'm saying? People have fell in love with this game. And I said all that to say that for you to be at this point now and still be passionate about it and not giving up and not broken and not being saying, you know what? Nah, I made the wrong decision. I'm going to go back and do a 9 to 5 and still be willing to go forward and be at it. It's very encouraging, very encouraging.
Good. You got to pivot. You got to pivot. And if you listen to some of the billionaires that are out there that have built businesses from the ground up, they'll tell you You'll fail 1,000 times before you hit that one. We all know the story of Thomas Edison before he actually got that light bulb off the ground. We know the story of the McDonald's guy before he was deep into his 50s before he got McDonald's off the ground. Walt Disney, we know the story of him before Walt Disney became who he is today. So, yes, we've got some new billionaires like the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world who came in on the technology rainbow, and they found that one little gem and pot of gold and they made it. But most billionaires, millionaires that survive the game, they don't make it on that first hit. They have to hit a couple of balls and get some fouls before they actually make that home run and
Right.
build that business. So I have that. That's the spirit I float on. I float
Right.
on that spirit that I believe you have to have the skill set. Sometimes it's about not having the skill set. Sometimes it's about not having the knowledge, and you have to go find those things. It's also about finding the teachers out there who you
Right.
can listen to and take what they are telling you and apply it. Application is essential. You can have all the knowledge in the world sitting in a book, but if you don't apply that knowledge and move to the next level, you just got knowledge sitting in a book. So application is the key, and few people understand what that means or how to grind down and get that. Like, be willing to, bear all and be all and grind down to get to that win. So for me, I just tell myself I may not have hit that home run on that first one, and I might have a few foul balls laying out on the field, but I know I'm still in the game. I know
Right.
I'm still in the game. And as long as I'm still in the game, I'm gonna keep playing. So
Right.
lots of things are coming around and spinning, and I see some light in that tunnel where I see I can apply what I got here, not just to help my business grow, but to help somebody else's business grow
Right.
and
Right.
move forward. And a lot of times that's the position you need to be in. Instead of the position of, oh, it's about me building my millions, it's about helping somebody else, because eventually you'll get there too through helping those. Okay.
Right. Right.
And I think that's where I've positioned myself now. I position myself to where I understand how to get in here and how to dissect all this and break it down to a palatable, information. Everybody, you can digest it easily. And then give some information to where they can apply it so they can go out here and make another run or do something else. Freight it's changing. It is changing. I dropped next week. I got 4 or 5 stories talking about electrical trucks.
Mhm.
They're coming, and they're
Right.
coming because of the fuel cost. They're going to change the way we do business. I got another story that Kansas City is opening up a new warehouse. There's a new warehouse going up in Kansas City. It's a cold storage warehouse. It can reach 80, anything shipped from that warehouse can hit 85% of the United States within 2 to 3 days.
Snap.
So when you pull that information, what do you have? You've got the opportunity of an electrical vehicle going in. It can last that 2 to 3 days. You set up that network to where you get those trucks hitting those charging stations, and you coordinate it right. You'll wind up pushing those trucks out, and then you'll turn it back around and bring them back. But most of that freight that's going to get to that warehouse is going to get there by rail. The rail system is going to be the primary system because they need to cut down on the fuel costs, and they need to figure out a way to get these electrical vehicles to be efficient so that they can control costs, because our economy is busted. I mean, it's literally busted when it comes to the money. It's busted.
Right.
Okay. There's just no way
Right.
around it. So if we're going to survive as a nation without having to continuously borrow and go into a deficit, we have got to come up with a better transportation and logistics paradigm. We have to. And it's gonna happen, but it takes time. It takes time to test and build and innovate and test and build and innovate, repeat. Okay. And in the
Mm.
meantime, owner operators, when you're buying your assets, are you going to buy new? Are you going to buy used? And you need to be looking at that, because at some point, just like it happened in California, you're going to have to change the type of truck that you drive. You're not going to be able to go to a port with a diesel truck, just like California did them. So at that point, you've got to then make the decision to don't invest your capital all into a brand new truck. Save that capital so that you can
Right.
get that electric vehicle when it gets ready, so that you can pivot in your business. Because this is not a set it and forget it game at all. This game right here it's constantly moving. I mean,
Right.
that's transportation logistics. The wheels are always moving. So we must think in that, through that lens. We must see what we do through that lens. So long story short, but at the same time, this is why I love the business, because it's always shifting and there's always an opportunity for somebody to enter the game, but not necessarily become that million billionaire. I
Right.
mean, that right there, I think that in this industry, becoming that billionaire, you're going to need to own a lot of trucks and you're going to need to have a lot of drivers.
Absolutely.
Okay. To be that person as an owner operator, you're going to make that 50, 60, you might even make that 100,000 a year. And if you plan right and you save your money right, you can save up and get, be comfortable. So,
You're right
but
about that.
yeah, yeah. So, in closing, what would you like to say in closing for this half of the show?
In closing, I would like to say, and I would like to reiterate to all the men and women that's in transportation, logistics, is getting product from one place to another. Be very passionate about your profession, because it is a profession. All owner operators are brand. So you have to make sure that your brand is very up to date, very current, and very serious.
All right.
And just know that, like she said, the economy is busted, but the transportation is going to be here after we're long and gone.
Exactly.
It's not going nowhere. You're always going to be. It's just like the electronic logs being implemented, I think about 15, 16 years ago. People think it's been 5 years, but I think it's been longer. People have just been getting away with it.
It
But
it became official like 5 years ago. Like you couldn't escape it. Whereas I think, like you said, about 15 or so is when they started to really trickle in.
right,
Mhm.
but
So
I want to just say that just be passionate. Get with a good uh mentor, a person that knows the business and that's not scamming you. It's just like I said,
mhm,
you're helping out a lot of new drivers. Showing them how to drive. You
mhm,
get a lot of information at
mhm.
free of charge.
Yeah,
And
absolutely,
a
absolutely.
lot of people
Mhm.
a lot of people think that's just how things are, and it's not like that. A
No.
lot that you provide that I know of. I'm being from Orlando, Florida, and I'm in Miami and Florida and Orlando. That stuff costs.
Yeah.
Just being in certain rooms and getting the information. I know your value, but a
Mhm.
lot of people around you don't. I
Yeah.
know, but a
Yeah.
lot of around me don't know my value. A
Exactly.
lot of stuff we give up, we just give up because of love, you
Yeah.
know, without getting
Absolutely.
love back.
Exactly.
But I said all that to say this: just be passionate, don't give up. If it's something you want to do, I hate to use this term, figuring it out, but figure it out, and always bring something back to the table, bring back to the source of what you learn, and maybe you can enhance that situation. But always bring something back and make yourself better each time that you're doing your job. And don't cut costs and don't take shortcuts.
That's it. Absolutely.
'Cause
Absolutely.
when you take shortcuts, guess what? You got to do it twice.
Absolute. 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 Well, we want to thank you all for tuning in, and be sure to check out the second half. Jason's going to share with us a little trip he went on, and we're going to talk about how that brings it into the world of logistics.